How can I break a 175? Before the June test, I felt really good, but only got a 170. So why do I do my worst on the actual test, and how do I change it?
Hello and welcome to episode 462 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Nathan Fox. With me is Ben Olson. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. You can be LSAT famous by sharing news and asking questions on our website, thinkinglsat.com. Please go to lsatdemon.com/free to find out about all of our upcoming free classes. On July 20th, we have a free class with Ala called Plateau Pulverizer for logical reasoning and reading comprehension. One of our most popular teachers and most popular classes at LSAT Demon. You can come to it absolutely for free on July 20th. Again, lsatdemon.com/free if you want to sign up for that class. Quick favor before we jump into all the content, answering all your questions on the show like we always do. We're shocked to see that we've been doing this now for 10 years, but only 65% of our watch time last week came from people who hadn't subscribed to us. And so that, I think we can work on that. I think that it might make your life easier because you'll just get our podcasts in your feeds. Just hit that subscribe button for us. It really does us a favor. If you ever want to do us a huge favor, just subscribe because it helps, the magic algorithms out there know that we're legit. So please do subscribe to us if you can.
Nate, where are you? You're always somewhere different when I look at your background.
I travel a lot. I'm always in, hotels and Airbnbs and places. I am today in Mexico City. First time I've ever been here. Got in last night. Just wanted to do my normal thing, which is like walk around and drink coffee and see what's around. I fly out on Friday. I'm just here for a few days. I'm going to just barely dip my toe in the water. I mean, this is the super megaopolis, it's wild. Unbelievable how big it is.
So you just chose to go there, or you have some event that you're going? Okay.
I went down for no reason. I had a few days open and I was like, I've always wanted to do this. I am ashamed that my Spanish is so terrible. It's not getting any better because everybody sees me and they just speak English to me.
Yeah.
But it's, it's just like one of these incredible places in the world that I had never been before. So I'm just going to go, like I said, be a tourist, walk around, see the cathedrals. The anthropology museum is supposed to be amazing. Art and stuff is super cool. I don't know. It's just fun to explore a little bit. It's like I'm a video gamer, right? So it's like a new area in a video game. Open world. So I just parachuted in and now I'm like, oh shit, what do I do around here?
Okay.
So anyway, tacos are in my future. I'll report back next week.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we got a bunch of emails similar to this first one on our agenda talking about June LSAT score and asking for future advice. You want to read it?
Yeah. Hi. I hope you all are doing well at the Demon. I've been studying since February and I improved 22 points from a 146 to a 168 on the June exam. While this is a good score, I was hoping to receive a 170 plus to offset my lower GPA. My dilemma is that I relied a lot on the games as I had them near perfect. Without the games, my practice test average drops from around 169 to 163. My last 5 practice tests on LSATs with games were between 167 and 172. I was wondering if you think it is worth continuing to study for the exam in order to receive a 170 plus score without games. If I were to go down this path, I would likely study until November, the latest, because I'm dead set on applying this fall. Okay. I'm just concerned that I won't see the same level and speed of improvement without the games on the exam. Is the difference between a 168 and a 170 enough to even justify this? Would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for all the advice you give on the podcast. Best, John.
You want to beat the dead horse or you want me to beat the dead horse?
I don't know. I mean, we've both done it so much, but why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I'll keep it brief. Why are you dead set on applying this fall? that's what's like, that's your problem. You know, you're letting your timeline interfere with your, you're getting your best representation of your ability on your official LSAT record. And so I don't know, maybe, you know, you did make great improvement. Don't get me wrong. You made a 22-point improvement. That's awesome. We have seen people improve significantly more than that. And you have practice test scores on record, even without the games. Oh no, sorry. Your PT average drops to a 163. I don't know if you've ever scored higher than 168 without the games. So maybe this is a spot to just say, well, if you really are dead set, I mean, if we take you at your word and we can't convince you that it would be worth it maybe to take more time, then maybe you just declare victory with that 168 and apply.
Yeah. It's tough.
It's
there
tough.
a big difference between a 168 and a 170?
Only the scholarship estimator can make that judgment, you know, or only you can make that judgment when you're looking at when you look at the 509 reports. I mean, look at the schools that you're applying to, and is a 168 already above their, like significantly above their median? Or if it, you know, if your 168 is already at their 75th percentile of all the schools you're applying to, then maybe there's no benefit to getting a 170. But if your 168 is right on their median, then yeah, a point or two makes a big difference.
Yeah. And you can really see that in the estimator. If you go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships and you put in your GPA, you put in your 168, and then you bump it up to a 170, and you see how many schools now say, hey, we will take you for a full scholarship, or are likely to. And then maybe it would open up the door to schools you just weren't even considering before.
Good luck, John. Thank you for writing in. Congratulations on your 20+ point improvement. That's amazing. You know, don't get us wrong. We're proud of the progress you've made so far. The thing that always kind of just like makes us grit our teeth a little bit is this: whenever people are dead set on applying right now, it's always like, oh boy, okay, so you're deciding that you've got to buy this car today.
Yeah.
And when you got to buy the car today, it's real hard to negotiate. It just doesn't put you in a good, and I don't mean actually sitting down at the table and hammering out like the price with the schools. I mean negotiating in the broader sense of setting yourself up to get the best offer you can possibly get. And, you know, just when you rush into it, it seems like you don't get the kind of offers that you would get if you took a take it or leave it kind of an approach where you're willing to walk away. So John doesn't sound willing to walk away. And that makes me think like they've already got their hooks in John, and they're going to just like squeeze him for the maximum cost.
Agreed.
But you changed your life, John, by going from 146 to 168. So I don't want to like turn a success story into a scolding. So congratulations on that. All right, next one's from Carlos, asking for some admissions help, I guess. Says, hi, Ben and Nathan, huge fan of the podcast. I was wondering if you guys could chime in on an admissions-related dilemma. I applied to 8 top 20 schools last cycle after getting a 167 on my first LSAT attempt in November. I also took the LSAT again in January, but flopped and got a 156. Ooh. I was admitted into USC and Georgetown and accepted to Georgetown. However, I just got my June LSAT back and got a 174 exclamation point. Georgetown only offered me $15,000 a year. I mean, you applied with a 167 to Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think I could get way more money and get into better schools if I reapply. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I have 2 concerns about reapplying. 1, will schools look negatively on me for having already applied during the previous admissions cycle? And 2, does it matter that I have 1 bad score out of my 3? And do I need to write an LSAT addendum? Also, what do you think the ceiling is for a 174 and a 3.93 GPA? Would love to hear your input on this. Best regards, Carlos.
Okay, so Carlos, I'm going to answer these questions actually in reverse. You have a 174 and a 3.93. So just take those 2 numbers and go put them in the scholarship estimator and see what offers you can get at different schools. Apply broadly, because even if the estimator says you will or won't or aren't likely to get a scholarship, you might end up getting one at many of these top schools. I mean, those numbers are great. So just apply broadly. Second question, does it matter that I have one bad score out of my 3? No, they only care about your highest score. So don't write that, or don't worry about that, and don't worry about writing an addendum. If they require you to write an addendum, just say, I knew I could do better, so I took the test again. Last question, will schools look negatively on me for having already applied during the previous admission cycle? This one too, I don't think they're going to care at all, but if they want to know, you can always just say, it wasn't the right time for me to go to school, so I decided to wait a year. Simple.
To answer, yep. And I'm looking at the scholarship estimator right now to answer Carlos's question on what the ceiling is. You know, you guys can all do your own statsturbation out there. Just go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships and put in your numbers. But I'm seeing a possible stipend at Michigan, which is a higher ranked school than Georgetown. I'm seeing a more than half scholarship at Georgetown, which is better than the 15,000 they've offered you, obviously. I'm seeing suggestions, though, that you would get more than half at Penn, more than half at UVA. Again, the stipend at Michigan, more than half at Northwestern, more than half at Berkeley, possible stipend at UCLA. And that's without checking the URM box, which we have no idea whether Carlos is a URM or not. But if you check the URM box, then now all of a sudden you're looking at, geez, I mean, possible stipend at Chicago, full tuition at Duke, full tuition at Penn, possible tuition stipend at UVA, full ride to Columbia. It depends on your individual circumstances always. And the best way to play around with that is just go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships.
Yep, totally.
Okay, next item on our agenda here is from Anonymous. The subject is real tests do worse.
I've been practice testing from 169 to 180 with most of my scores around 172. My goal is to get a 175 plus. I was practice testing close to a 175 average in the fall. However, on my first administration in October, I got a 168. Then a 167 on the second administration. I took a 5-month break from studying, and before the June test, I felt really good, but only got a 170. How can I break a 175? My last 2 practice tests before my June test, I got a 180 on both. So why do I do my worst on the actual test, and how do I change it? Also, is it worth reapplying with a 170 versus a 168 as a splitter?
170 is different that's not the same as a 168. That is a marked difference, and it will go from below the median to above the median at certain schools. When you go below the median to above the median at certain schools, I mean, how many schools are there, Ben, do you think, that have a median of exactly 169?
Yeah, a handful.
There are a handful of them that have exactly that median. And it would be very important to them that you went from a 168 to a 170 at those schools. Are you applying to those schools? I have no idea. You have to do that determination. It's not one size fits all advice. To answer your question about underperforming on the real test, you are clearly giving the real test more attention and more power than you are giving your practice tests. You're treating the practice tests with a certain casual way that is benefiting you. You need to bring that same relaxed approach to the official test. I don't know how you're behaving differently on the official test. Some people slow way down, some people speed way up. Both of them result in underperformance. So you need to figure out how to just maintain the exact same, you're reading carefully, but you're not triple checking wrong answers. You're dismissing wrong answers as soon as you know they're wrong. You're not rushing. You're not trying to finish the sections. Those 180s might have acted against you because you're like, well, I got to get a 180 today. So I'm going to make sure that I do every question. And then you did every question and got a 170, which means that you were sloppy on the questions that you did. Slow way down, stop shooting for particular numbers, play the game that you have, play that same practice test game. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, you still have 2 more attempts. So,
I hope you're signed up for August and September. I think you should take August and September and be done. Congratulations, actually, on the June test. I know that it was a disappointment for you, but it made a real improvement in your official record. Your floor is now 170. But prior to June, your floor was 168. Your floor is now 170. No matter what you do from here on, you're still a 170 in the eyes of the schools. So that's good. You should be happy about that. I think you can go get a 175 or higher on the August and or September tests. I think you should take both of them, unless you knock it out of the park on August. But plan on taking both. And yeah, I don't know. You got to figure it out for yourself. What did you do differently? You did something differently.
yeah. This next one is from Laura.
Hi, Demon Team. I took the June LSAT and finally got my goal score of 172! I'm planning to apply this fall. I took my first LSAT in September of 2022, and I have an LSAT writing sample on file from then. According to LSAC policies, I don't need to do another sample with the new argumentative writing prompt, but I'm wondering if you think schools will care if I don't have both. Or even if they don't care, do you think it would help me to have samples for both prompts? Thanks for your thoughts and for the demon. I love it. Congratulations on reaching your goals. You did all the work in the demon. We built it, but you did all the work. So congratulations on learning how this test is just common sense. You've learned how easy it is, which is fantastic.
I don't think it's worth the time to do this again.
I don't think I would do it either. I would just meet the LSAC requirements that you have to have a writing sample. You already have a writing sample. They're not making you do the new writing sample. I can't imagine why I would jump through that hoop. Congratulations, Laura. Thanks for writing in. Next one's from Anonymous about Canadian law school costs.
Hi, demons. Seeing that your tagline is "Don't pay for law school," I figured you'd have a unique perspective on finances. I am confident I will be accepted to a Canadian law school costing a modest $13,000 per year. As you're probably aware, Canadian law schools are fairly consistent in quality but offer few, if any, full scholarships, so the prospect of going for free is rare. I completed a biochem degree with a 3.85 GPA and I have a 168 LSAT. The problem is that the cheaper tuition is overshadowed by the disastrous housing market, think more expensive than New York City, especially since living in a dorm or with roommates isn't feasible for me. What is a reasonable amount of debt to accrue over 3 years with the plan of aggressively going after a top paying job after? I'd also be working summers. I know what the banks think the amount is, but I know they don't care if people get into debt traps. Living in a van down by the river has crossed my mind, but I prefer to keep my limbs in winter. Thanks. It's cold up there in Canada.
It's cold, especially East Coast Canada is cold. Yeah. I haven't ever heard of anybody getting a full ride to Canadian law schools. Canadian law schools cost a reasonable amount. Many people get tuition assistance from their province, which makes it even cheaper. I have a feeling that's where that $13,000 a year is coming from for Anonymous. What an economist would do, or a business-minded person would do, is add up all the costs. Probably got to add in something for interest because you'll be borrowing money right off the bat. So first year cost, how much is that? Plus the interest. Okay. Second year cost, how much is that? Add it to the principal and interest from the first year. You could make a spreadsheet, or you could put it into a table, or there probably are calculators out there that'll help you figure it out. But, make some reasonable estimates and figure out what you're going to owe when you get out. It might be helpful to just talk to a typical graduate, figure out like somebody who did what you did, who's going to borrow what you're going to borrow. Just figure out what they actually owed when they graduated, and then assume it's going to be more than that because tuitions do continue to go up. Then, you know, figure out how much money you're going to make as a top paying job after, and figure out how long it takes you to pay that off. I sense that it's just a lot more civilized and reasonable in Canada. This is what Canadian lawyers do, after all. And they don't seem to be playing the scholarship games that they play in the States. And it's really the scholarship games that have gotten us into this pickle, I think, Ben. I think that the reason why we continue to say don't pay for law school on every single episode is that in the States, they have fake pricing. They have a nominal tuition of $60,000 a year, and then they actually charge the average student $30,000 a year. And some students are paying zero. Some students are paying the full 60. Some students might actually be getting paid to go there. That's those stipends that I was talking about earlier. And so we look at that and we go, Jesus Christ, that's scary for young people who don't know, they're not savvy in this game. And they're just going to show up and borrow the full amount. Meanwhile, some privileged student or some savvy student is going for free. And that strikes us as unfair and surprisingly unfair, which is why we constantly hammer this message of like, hey, everybody, pay attention to what's going on with law school pricing. In Canada, that's not happening. So I get the sense that it's a much more reasonable endeavor. I would still give some caveats, right? Like, have you worked in the law? Do you know what those top paying law jobs actually look like? Do you think you're going to stick in those jobs? Because if you hate it and decide, and get out of it and do something else, then, it still might not have been a good investment. Probably would not have been a good investment. I'm rambling a bit. You want to?
No, I agree. There's no free lunch, right? And
except that there is in the US, right? That's
Well,
the thing. It's like there's a free lunch for some of the people. The high LSAT, high GPA, more privileged, like they tend to be whiter. They tend to have more educated parents. Those types of people tend to get better deals on their JD. And then there's just like the kids who, first generation, don't know any lawyers, think that this is going to be a gravy train, and they just pay some exorbitant amount.
Yeah, no, totally. I guess my point there is there's a free lunch for some people, but even then there's not a free lunch, right? Like it's not rational for a school to set up shop and say, hey, we're going to pay you to come here unless there's some sort of benefit. Someone is paying that cost.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as other people, like you said, who are often not familiar with the system, we can only say don't pay for law school because the system is broken. If it were more like Canada, then we would just be focusing on higher LSAT scores to get admission and pay a reasonable price to go to school. Now, I don't know if Canada is reasonable. The mere fact that the province is supporting or subsidizing schooling, right, is going to affect the prices there too. So you have to be cautious and make sure you get those benefits. Otherwise, you're probably paying an inflated price.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just law schools in the US. We're an LSAT business, so we focus on LSAT, but it's not just law schools in the US. It's all graduate schools, as I understand it. I got 2 master's degrees for free because of high test scores. And at both of those schools, it was a little bit hush hush. They didn't really want you to be talking about it. They didn't have to publish the scholarship information the way that law schools have to publish scholarship information. So that's the American Bar Association actually doing something. Thank God those 509 reports exist. Thank God that information is out there in the world. Because if it wasn't, we wouldn't be able to build the scholarship estimator, and we wouldn't be able to tell this story that like, hey, y'all need to pay attention to the price you're going to pay. It's yeah, I mean, I guess all we're trying to do is shed some light on this. And we do think that if you're a savvy applicant, you will take advantage of that system in the US. In Canada, that system doesn't exist. So it's almost like, yeah, disregard all that.
By the way, when you applied to grad school, how did they frame the scholarships that they gave you? It was a reward for your hard work.
I wish I remembered. It was so long ago. I mean, it was like 2004 and 2006. So we're talking about 18, 20
Yeah.
years ago that I did these two
Yeah.
master's degrees. And I didn't even expect them. That's that's the other hilarious part is that I applied to one master's program in journalism
Mhm.
and got a full ride
Hmm.
with horrible undergrad grades.
Wow, interesting.
And it was like, okay, we need you to give this program some credibility so that we can then charge everybody else full price.
Mhm.
I think there were one or two, just a small handful of scholarship students, and then there were full price students who were international students a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Same thing with my MBA. I was not planning on getting a scholarship. I applied to two schools. I didn't get into one of them. And I got into Babson College, and Babson gave me a full ride. And there were like 50 people in my section of my 1-year MBA, and four of them were on full rides.
Hmm.
And the rest of them were, maybe there were some partial scholarships, but I remember it was like, yeah, don't talk about that a lot because people will feel bad or whatever. And
Mm.
it's so, yeah, I don't remember. It was just like, yeah, when they were excited to receive my application and they just sent me unsolicited a full ride scholarship.
Wow.
And
Well,
that's
I
what
just
happens in law schools in the States too.
Oh, totally. It does. And what I think is also interesting is that the narrative is it's all about, oh, we're here to help you. And, oh, this is to reward you for the hard work you've done to get these high scores. In reality, that's just like kind of glossing over the real business reason behind these grants, right? They frame it as, oh, we're here to help you. Sure, it does help you to get a scholarship, but not the scammerships. But that's the message. It's like, hey, you know what? We're gonna cut you a little bit of a break here. We're gonna give you $5,000 off because of your excellent application or the things you've done in the past. And it's not so much about that. It's more just a business
It's
deal.
marketing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a coupon or it's a discount, When you walk into the grocery store and they have shit that's on sale, it's just like, yeah, they're just trying to sell it to you. They're just trying to incentivize you to purchase it today. They're just giving you a little something off. And everybody's seen those sales that aren't even really sales, right? It's like, oh, you get a quarter off if I join your stupid tracking program,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And this is a version of that. I've said this a million times on the show, but economists call it price discrimination. It's a great way to maximize your revenue if you're a business. And that's what they're doing. They're charging everyone a different price. They don't call it that. No, we're not charging everyone a different price. The tuition is the exact same for everyone.
Yeah.
It's just that we give scholarships to significant swaths of our students because of their hard work and promise and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, okay, call it a discount, call it a different price, because that's what it actually is. But they're never going to do that because it doesn't benefit them to do it that way. It's like
Yeah.
dealer incentives, cash back credits,
Hmm.
all that type of shit. Like all that is just various different ways of charging people different prices,
Yep.
which, it strikes, I think it's just sort of like a human nature thing. Our instinct for fairness recoils against the idea of everybody paying a different price. So that's why they do it the way they do it. It's like, oh, no. The tuition is the tuition. The fees are the fees.
Hmm.
When you get a full ride, you'll even like get an invoice that shows the tuition that you paid. And then the like negative scholarship.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for writing in. I bless Canada for being more civilized it is like they have a society that's built a lot more on like fairness. So they're just trying to be more, it's like sort of more equitable the way they're doing that. Ava writes in looking for tips on RC.
Hey, Ben and Nathan, just reached out hoping you might be able to offer some advice. I'm registered to take the LSAT in August. My practice test scores are currently in the low 170s. Damn, a lot of high scores in this episode today.
Yeah.
Congrats to everybody.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Anyways, your practice test scores are in the low 170s and less often in the high 160s. I'm Canadian. Okay.
Oh.
And thanks, Eric, for organizing the show. I'm Canadian and applying to Canadian schools, so these scores are well within the range I want to apply with, and I feel ready to test. I am strong at logical reasoning, typically going -2, plus or -1, and I'm continuing to see improvements there. Reading comp is where I seem to struggle a little bit more, sometimes going up to -5, but usually no more than that. Oftentimes, the issue is misunderstanding some parts of the passage, but I'm finding it difficult to spend more time understanding it when I'm worried about the time pressure. Time is not a problem in logical reasoning, but this seems to go out the window with reading comprehension. How do I work to improve my understanding of passages without panicking about time?
Step one is turn off the clock. Or mute the clock, as I heard someone say recently, which I enjoy. You can turn off the clock by clicking on it. And that is step one in the demon way. When you're doing a timed section, you start the section, you take a deep breath, and you turn off the clock. Then you solve question number 1 and you get it right. Then you solve question number 2 and you get it right. In reading comp, you're going to start the section, take a deep breath, turn off the clock, read the first sentence carefully, see where you think the passage is going, make a prediction maybe about what you think they're going to say next. Read the second sentence carefully. Think about where they have gone already. Think about where they might go in the future. Has the author given any sort of an opinion yet? Do you know where the author stands on these issues? Read the third sentence carefully. And you just do that one sentence at a time, always thinking about what the author wants. Where are they in all of this? Organize in your head. You don't need to take notes or highlight or anything, but organize in your head. Okay, here's one perspective that the author is presenting. Is it their perspective, though? Here's another perspective that the author is presenting. Is that their perspective or not? At the end of the passage, you're going to want to sum it all up. Okay, so the overall picture here is they wanted to tell me about a new technology that could be used to date rocks. And they think it's interesting, but they don't think it's going to be perfect in every application. All right, good enough. Now you calmly answer question number 1. You solve question number 1. You get it right. You do that for every question in the passage. Some of the questions you have to go back. Some of them you don't. Then you repeat that process for passage 2. And then if you have time for passage 3. And then if you have time for passage 4. But what students do is they fail to turn off the clock, or they turn off the clock, but they still have an internal clock that they're racing. And then everything just goes out the window from there. You want to talk about what happens when you start, like, when you try to serve 2 masters at once?
Yeah, you get torn in 2 directions and you can't do either one well, right? I mean, I think what's happening here is this student says she has -5, and I think she doesn't want to let go of that, right? It's like, oh, that's where I'm at, and I've got to get better than that. Well, actually, just let go of that. Maybe that's not where you're at. Maybe you need to finish 3 passages 100%.
Well, I would frequently score -5 on the section, even if I only did 3 passages.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would do 3 perfect passages, randomly guess on the 4th. And if the 4th had 5 or 6 questions in it, I would get one of those right on average, and I would still be at -5. So,
Yep.
I probably Ava thinks, no, I have to finish all 4 passages and every question in all 4 passages. Actually, Ava, you need to do 3 perfect passages and then a couple perfect questions in the 4th passage, and you already would be improving your score.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't even matter because might not be where you're at yet, right? Like, let's get 3 perfect passages first and then talk about starting to read the 4th passage. I mean, you have high scores, so you're probably close.
Yeah, where do the minuses fall? I would be really interested in where those minuses fall. Because if the minuses are all on the last passage, then I think you're doing it right. But if the minuses are happening, I dropped one here and I dropped one there and I dropped a couple there, and then, I got a perfect final passage, then it's like, yeah, okay, but you're just hurrying too much. And also, so the idea is you can't do it right and do it fast at the same time. But if you do it right, you will frequently accidentally go plenty fast. And that's not true the other way around. You're never going to go fast and then like accidentally get them all right. Rather, you're going to just get them all right. You're processing it, right? You're like doing legal work.
Mm-hmm.
You're solving the questions. You're doing legal work. And sometimes when you get good enough at it, it turns out that it was a piece of cake. The wrong answers looked really wrong to you. You were able to dismiss them quickly. The right answers looked really right to you. You were able to pick them confidently. You weren't trying to go fast. It's just that work wasn't that hard because you understood the passages, the questions got easier, you therefore got faster. But if you try to go fast at the same time as being accurate, you're working at cross purposes. It's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back if you try to do it that way. This poll, Ben, is interesting. You did a poll in a recent class. It asked, if I don't finish an RC section in time, I feel. The most popular choice was a little frustrated, but I tell myself I will get there with practice. Over half the class said that. That's not terrible, but there is a response that's even better than that, which is the first response, which only 18% of the class picked, which is fine because I know I will get there with practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that's part of what we do is we try to repeat this message enough and let people practice it enough that they start to feel it. Mm-hmm. And then they go from hoping that they're going to get there to knowing that they're going to get there.
Yeah, the second most common answer, which was 24% of the class, said they feel frustrated because I've been practicing and I feel like it's not making a difference. What we're trying to do is tell people it's going to take time. And often you end up doing fewer questions when you start focusing on accuracy, but that's okay.
Yeah. 1 perfect passage at a time, Let's look at passage number 1 in that section. Did you make any mistakes? No? If you made no mistakes, fantastic. Passage number 2, did you make any mistakes? You did? Okay, well, there's your problem. You were doing something wrong there. You were going too fast. You might not have understood the question. You might not have realized how on reading comp, they're basically just a whole bunch of must be true questions. But you did something wrong if you missed the question. You picked a wrong answer and you failed to pick the right answer. That's 2 mistakes in 1. So you're obviously not being careful enough. And that's where you need to improve. I don't care about the passage 3, passage 4 that you didn't get to or didn't have time or whatever. That's where students are always so stressed. Oh my God, I ran out of time during the 4th passage and I missed 3. Yeah, okay, but you also missed 5 on the questions that you did attempt. Mm-hmm. And that's a much bigger problem than the 3 that you didn't attempt.
Yeah.
Ready for the next one?
Yep.
Hello, I've been a Demon subscriber since February, currently scoring in the lower 160s on the LSAT. My query is, if someone is already above the median GRE for Harvard, my target is T14, should they prepare for the LSAT and apply using the LSAT score, or would the GRE suffice? I completed my undergraduate studies in India and 2 postgraduate programs in Canada. Now I work at a boutique management consulting firm. My international transcript benefits law schools as LSAC does not convert it into a US scale, but rather an upper pass. This benefits law schools by potentially increasing their median GPA, while maintaining their overall GPA profile, as this information does not need to be disclosed in US rankings. I don't understand that. If they show an upper pass to US law schools, they don't get to use that as a numeric GPA, right? I don't see how they can increase their median GPA by not reporting it.
I don't see that either. I don't see how you could increase your median without having a number of some sort. So how can you do both of these things at the same time? Also, maintaining your overall GPA profile, wouldn't you want it to, if it's going to pull your median up, don't you want it to
You would
pull your
want it to be
overall?
reportable. Maybe Anonymous meant increase their median GRE in that spot. So it's like my upper pass isn't gonna, it's just their GPA profile doesn't change. All I am to them. I suspect that all this student is to them is a test score, a GRE or an LSAT.
Yep.
And I'm not to say that, you know, your your upper pass or whatever, that seems good. The 2 postgraduate programs that you did in Canada, those might be a feather in your cap. I have no idea what bearing that's going to have on your application. So Eric did a bit of research for us here and gave the Harvard 509, which says that they last year enrolled 58 students with GRE scores, and they enrolled 43 students with no reportable LSAT. We don't know what the overlap is between those two. You don't get to pick, right? If you have GRE and LSAT on your report, they have to report both, I believe. And so, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Should Anonymous take the LSAT or not?
Well, Anonymous's target is T14. How many schools accept GRE outside of Harvard?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to research that, again, I would start at lsatdemon.com/scholarships, and you just start clicking on the 509s. So Michigan, no GRE enrollees. Northwestern, 18 GRE enrollees. 16 not included in LSAT calculations out of a class of 241. So, you know, pretty rare avenue that people are getting into that kind of a school with just GRE. That doesn't mean that it's harder. It just means that there's fewer people who are trying to do it, or it's harder. UCLA had 1. Duke had 4. Chicago had 7. Yale had none. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it kind of looks like a serious applicant would, if your GRE is above their median, well, that could be because you're good at math though. And LSAT could be harder for you. Take a practice LSAT and see how you like it. You know, if you score 160 out of the box, then I have no doubt that you're going to end up with a 175 or higher official. If you take an LSAT and you score 145, then it's like, okay, well, you know, you can improve. People do get from there into the 170s.
So this person does say they're currently scoring in the lower 160s.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry. Current Demon subscriber currently scoring in the low 160s. Can you get to the 170s? I mean, I wouldn't take it unless I got something in the 170s.
Yeah, just look at your practice test scores, right? Really, like I do think you're on more solid ground if you can have an LSAT score. It just looks like you're more serious about law school. And there are schools that, even though they accept the GRE, you said, I don't know which schools you said in there, but one of them had 1 and some of them had 4. I mean, that's not the norm.
No.
They're making exceptions there. So there's probably something else going on.
Yeah.
I would take it if you're serious.
One note about your post-grad programs that you did in Canada, I think that those will help the schools understand that you have a strong command of the English language. A lot of times they worry about international applicants not being able to speak or write English well enough to hang in an English law program. So, those 2 degrees that you've already done in Canada are going to, I mean, I suppose you could have done them in French, but they're going to probably sense that, oh, okay, so this is somebody who, is going to be able to participate in the conversations here. And you've got great work experience. It would be interesting to see what kind of success an applicant like that would have with just GRE at Harvard. One strategy would be apply to Harvard with your GRE and see what happens while continuing to prep for the LSAT, and just don't take the official LSAT until you know that your practice test scores are where you want them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one's from Anonymous asking about letters of recommendation.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. A couple questions on letters of recommendation. First, have you ever heard of a letter written by 2 people together?
I don't think
No.
that's even possible. I'm imagining that the LSAC form is going to require you to put in the name singular of a recommender.
Yeah.
But anyway, proceed.
I've been close with my first boss and her family for over a decade. Her husband is an attorney and has been encouraging as I take this step into a new career path. Would it make any sense to ask my former boss and her husband to write a letter together? Even
No.
if you could, I don't think it's a good idea because this person wasn't ever your boss.
Yeah.
They're just a friend encouraging you to go to law school. That does not qualify them as someone who is good at evaluating your academic or professional performance. So
Yeah, bad
either
idea.
way, out. Second, I graduated undergrad 13 years ago. My targeted schools specified that at least one letter should be academic. I'm concerned because at this point, even the 1 or 2 I could feasibly contact, 1 or 2 professors, wouldn't have known me during the last 10 years of my career, whereas I do have many other possible professional references. Any advice on if an academic letter is crucial? Thank you. You know, we hear admissions people talk about this every now and then. I don't think it's an ironclad requirement. If they do say, hey, you need at least 1 academic, I don't think there's any problem reaching out to them and saying, hey, I've been out of school for 13 years. Would you accept 2 professional?
Yeah, just ask them. And if they say, if you tell them, look, I've got 13 years of work experience, are you sure you don't want 2 letters from my bosses or clients or
This year?
yeah, like this decade, instead of, I'd be shocked if they like actually insist. I think that the reason why they have this requirement is that they don't want a 21-year-old to say like, okay, so here's my manager at an internship and here's my manager at Starbucks or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like, wait a second, you just graduated from school. Can we hear from a professor about
they're
your
trying to
academic
skirt around
promise?
that because they couldn't get a professor who actually liked them.
Exactly.
And we're
But
applying to school. Yeah.
For older applicants, experienced applicants, I have a feeling that they might actually prefer the 2 professional letters. So I would just ask them. If they do insist on 1 academic letter, I don't think it should be that big of a deal to email your favorite professors, plural, because one of them could be dead and one of them could be on a sabbatical and one of them could forgot, I mean, you might need to cast a wide net, but write back and say, hey, you probably don't remember me, but I definitely remember you. I got an A in such and such class in this semester of this year. Loved your class, really influential to me. I'm applying to law school now, and they're insisting that I have an academic letter of reference. Would you be able to write that letter for me? And it might take some follow-up, start with an email, then start making phone calls if you have to, but hopefully you can work around it and just use professional letters.
I love the fact that you said to email several professors, and I would email as many as you can, as long as you got an A in that class, because 3 people might actually write back to you, but you can get a sense of how excited they are too, right? But
how well does this person actually know me? How enthusiastic are they about this application?
Totally.
Did they respond promptly? Yeah.
Did they respond promptly, right? Because even if 3 end up writing back, I guarantee you one's going to write back within the same day, while someone else is going to write back a week later and someone else is going to write back 2 weeks later. Oh, just seeing this, happy to help. And you don't want to work with that person because it's just going to take forever to get things done.
Right.
All right. We got tips from a departing demon. This is from Legally old. The subject line is June LSAT 31-point improvement.
Nice. Hey, Ben and Nathan, great news to share! Exclamation point. First, I'm in my mid-50s, inspired to go to law school after working alongside attorneys on several issues. GPA 3.3, diagnostic 148 in March of 2023. I studied with 2 other prep companies until last fall when I scored a 157 on record. Thanks to you, I went from thinking I was too old to wait another year to apply to realizing I was too old not to wait, to graduate near age 60 with $300,000 in debt.
Ugh.
I studied for 7 months with the Demon, 4 on Demon Live. I drilled an hour each morning, often either taking a live class or a timed section with full tests every 2 weeks. I got so much from reviewing missed questions that I started reviewing correct ones also, which I believe enhanced my learning. My June score was 179! Exclamation point. Thank you for helping me stand on your shoulders to reach this score. I plan to use my degree to help make the world a better place. Through me and thousands of others, that is exactly what you are doing. Gratefully, Legally Old.
Damn.
Yeah. Thank you for your diligence, your hard work. I don't know who you are, but I'm sure you asked good questions in your live classes. Glad our way worked for you. I hope you found it more common sense than whatever other 2 prep companies you previously used.
And those are, you could have a starting score of 157 and end with 179 and be celebrating to the moon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Legally Old, yeah, they improved 7 points with their 2 other prep companies.
9.
Then they improved 22 points on top of that with LSAT Demon.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Not as crazy as it used to be. 31 points used to be like, holy shit, that's the biggest improvement I've ever heard of. Now we have heard of like high 30-point improvements or even 40-point improvements.
Yeah,
I believe.
at least on practice test scores. And
Yeah.
still waiting for an official 40-point improvement, but
that's an
maybe it's
official
happened.
31 improvement there for Legally Old. So congratulations. Yeah. All right. Word of the week time. Ben, you suggested a couple words. One of them says, quote, the idea of joining a risky startup run by a mercurial millionaire did not have much appeal. What were you reading when you heard that line?
That's Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson.
Oh, was he only a millionaire at that point?
Yeah, this was early on. I believe this was referring to one of the folks that started, well, it might have been SpaceX with him, but the guy asked for 2 years of salary in escrow. I think this is what this story is referring to. And that was to Musk, like, oh, okay, so then you're not a co-founder.
Yeah, I mean, you're not a founder if you're not taking the risk, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, but the reason why this is on Word of the Week is because of mercurial.
Yes.
I think that word mercurial means it's like similar to the mercury in a thermometer. That the mercury rises, the mercury falls. Depending on where you are, that can happen very rapidly, right? If you're like in Phoenix or something, it can be 100 degrees in the daytime and then plummet because you're in the desert, plummet to 50 at night or something.
Yeah.
And so I think what it means is, and yeah, Musk is definitely mercurial in that sense, right? That he seems like he goes hot and cold. He's one thing and then he's another thing and he's just popping off and not really thinking before he talks a lot. All right. So is it time to look at the official definition?
Yeah, look it up.
Of, relating to, or born under the planet Mercury is the first definition. Second definition, having qualities of eloquence, ingenuity, or thievishness attributed to the god Mercury or the influence of the planet Mercury. Okay, I wasn't expecting mythology. But the planets are, obvious. I didn't think of the planet Mercury. I was just thinking of the element of Mercury. Characterized by rapid and unpredictable changeableness of mood, which that must be why Mercury, why they named Mercury Mercury, right? Is that it is this metal that weirdly expands a lot. It's like when liquid, it expands. It's like liquid at 32 degrees. It's also liquid at 100 degrees. And if you put it in an environment where you change it from cold to hot, it expands. And if the god Mercury was, sounds like a rogue a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's got
a little bit of a cunning, a clever rogue.
But an unpredictability. I mean, I think that third definition is what is really characterized by rapid and unpredictable changeableness of mood. Just like, you can't predict exactly what the thermometer is going to do tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I learned a little bit more about a word that I've seen a million times. And, I know what it means. I've never looked it up. I know what it means from context. But, never heard that one before. All right, next one is from the NYT, New York Times. Quote, the image of the nation as some combination of unhinged and doddering was especially striking at a time when the U.S. is supposed to be leading the fight against a rising alliance of autocracies that includes China, Russia, and Iran. Okay, well, I know what this is talking about.
Yeah, unhinged and doddering.
So this is referring to the recent debate between our two fine presidential candidates, one of whom is being described as unhinged. You can decide who you want to be unhinged in that, and you can decide who wants to be doddering in that. But yeah, that word doddering means old.
Yep.
It just means that you're
feeble. Yeah, stumbling.
You're feeble. You're an old man acting like an old man is what doddering means. Let's look up the definition. I'm thinking of, Mr. Magoo. I'm not seeing definitions on that link that I pulled up. I'm just seeing synonyms.
So you do. So I looked up daughter.
I just experienced an earthquake, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Mexico has lots of earthquakes. Mexico City was like destroyed by a huge earthquake, however long ago, not too long ago. And yeah, there was just right now an aftershock a little bit. But,
can you guess the magnitude?
Growing up in California.
Yeah, we used to like to do that in California. Oh, that was a 4.5.
You can never guess the magnitude because you don't know where it was.
It
depends on how far away it was. If it could have been an 8.0 in Colombia, or it could have been a 2.0 centered on Mexico City. I don't know.
So if you look up daughter, it says to tremble or shake from weakness or age.
Maybe
to progress
I'm just old.
Feebly and unsteadily.
Okay.
Yeah, timely. Okay.
Is that what it feels like to be an old man?
I swear there was just an earthquake. I swear. No, it was you, man.
All right. I think that seems like it's probably enough for today. You can be LSAT famous again if you want to ask questions or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on the socials at LSAT Demon. You will find yourself on a future episode of the show, especially if you ask an interesting and concise question, or you share with us some news that we didn't know, or a word of the week suggestion, or anything. Just hit us up. We'd love to hear from you, the listener. If you have questions
I would add to that too. Yeah, just please include your GPA and LSAT scores. A lot of times people will include one or the other, and
both is definitely more helpful. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, you can email help@lsatdemon.com. Please check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 462 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing ya. And if you're in the US, don't pay for law school. At least don't pay full price.